All right, this is for my intro micro students. As we approach the end of the quarter, we got this. There's just two more chapters, and in these two chapters, we're comparing the market structures of perfect competition and monopoly. So this lecture in particular will address the perfect competition model, and then I will stop and I will upload this and then go on and do the Monopoly lecture for you. Combined, these two lectures will help you with doing the homework. You should notice the homework is pretty short. I kept it short. We don't have much time till the end of the quarter. It's the final push, and I get that people are swamped with final projects and things you have to do for your other classes. We'll get it done. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully you will. And then you can have a little celebration when you're done. So without any further ado, let me go. I have, to start out the discussion on monopoly and perfect comp, let me preface it with market structures. So I posted this in the module as well. Make sure that you go back to the beginning of this module. And that's where I put it, because that's where we start. That's the foundation and why we're doing perfect comp and monopoly. It's actually our two extremes of four different market structures. We're not going to have time to get to the other two market structures. We do a good treatment of those in the intermediate microeconomics class, Econ 304. If you are interested in taking that, I would strongly encourage you to take that. It's a great class as well. But anyways, let me start out with market structures in general, and then we can compare and contrast perfect comp and monopolies. We can get our heads around what kinds of industries are we talking about here. When I say perfect comp, what kind of a firm should you be imagining? When I say monopoly, what kind of a firm should you have in your head? Framing the discussion of how these two market structures work and the competitive environment within which the firms in those market structures relate to each other, and how that affects their output decisions and the price that's going to be charged in the market. All right, so I'm going to go to the market structure handout, which again is posted at the beginning of the module. This lecture and the lecture notes, as well as the exercise we're going to be working through, are posted about in the middle of the module. A little further down in the module is where you will find the Monopoly handout, the lecture notes basically for the Monopoly. And so all of those items together will help you do the homework and to learn these two chapters to the best of your ability by the end of the quarter. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out. Come see me during my office hours, my virtual office hours, or just shoot me a question by email. All right, here we go. Without any resume recording. Okay, so hopefully you're here. I think I might have accidentally stopped the recording for a second, but I opened up the types and characteristics of market structures. And so in this case, let me go back and make sure, are we recording? I hope that I'm recording. Okay, I want to make sure before I go too far, though. Hold on one second. Let me go back. And I'm going to stop share for just a second. Okay, we are recording. Good. So now I'm going to come back. I'm going to do screen share market structures. Here we go. I apologize for that. I just wanted to not waste my time, go through a whole lecture, then realize that it wasn't sharing. So here we go. So when we talk about a market structure, and this is a nice little table that compares the different characteristics of the market structures. What we're talking about is the environment within which the firms compete. So it's the competitive environment, okay? So looking at all the firms in the industry, how do they relate to each other? On the basis of several of these categories that are on the left. So think of this as a continuum. So on the one hand, we have perfect comp all the way over here on the left, perfect comp, and we have monopoly here on the right. And these are ordered in by number of firms. So the largest number in an industry that has the largest number of firms, and a ton of firms that are very, very small, that's perfect comp. All the way at the other end of the spectrum, it's a continuum, right? At the other end of the spectrum is monopoly, where we have just one huge mammoth firm. So as you move from perfect comp to monopoly across this continuum, your firms are going to become less, there's going to be fewer of them, and they're going to get bigger in size, okay? And so that's the deal as we go along. So if you look number of buyers and sellers, under perfect comp, there's a large number of buyers and sellers. So there's tons of them. And then monop comp, there's a large number of buyers and sellers also. The difference between perfect comp and monopolistic comp is that perfectly competitive firms all produce the same product. It's an identical product. You can buy it from any one of the firms and it will be identical. The classic example of perfect comp, let me just get this out there now so you can get your head around this, is agriculture. If you think about a red delicious apple, you don't know whose orchard that red delicious apple was grown in. And in fact, all the farmers that grow red delicious apples, they're all going to look the same. You wouldn't be able to tell from the grocery store where those red delicious apples came from. Okay, and so to show you that, hold on, let me just pause for a second since we're on this idea of agriculture being our best example of perfectly competitive. Let me go, I collected the data and I know you can't see it. I'm going to do stop share for a second, and then I'm going to do screen share, and I want to go to my browser real quick, and then there's my, that's not what I wanted because that is my mail, but I want over here the total number of farms in the US because we love data and economics, obviously. And so you can see that from 2000 all the way down to, let me expand the statistic, to 2019, over 2 million farms, okay? That's a heck of a lot of firms in this industry, agriculture, okay? So that's what we mean by perfectly competitive. And again, they're not huge. So here is average firm size to show you the data here. And the average firm size in 2019 was only, actually, yeah, 2019, as you can see as I'm hovering over it, was only 444 acres. That's not huge by any means, right? So only 444 acres, and there's over 2 million of these. Large number, small size firms, perfectly competitive. Again, with the homogeneous products, that the Rainier cherries are going to be Rainier cherries regardless of where they were produced and who produced them, which individual, cherry orchard they came from. Okay, so that's what we mean by perfect comp. So I'm going to stop sharing my internet. I just want to show you the real world data, that I'm not making this stuff up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop share. I'm going to go again back to my market structures diagram, hopefully with all this bouncing around that you guys are following along. I'm going to stop for 1 second. I do need a drink. I ran a 5K today, and then I played some pretty vicious hockey down in my basement with my little guy. So I'm a little thirsty, so bear with me. All right, anyways, so let me finish this column on perfect comp. The characteristics of perfect competition are a lot of firms, homogeneous product. Homogeneous means similar product. Let me just quickly, because I mentioned it before, monopolistic comp has heterogeneous products. The products are slightly differentiated from one firm to the next. So even though, think of hamburgers. So even though it's still a hamburger, each restaurant is going to put their own twist on the hamburger. Okay, so that a McDonald's hamburger is not the same as a Burger King hamburger. It's not the same as a Wendy's hamburger or a Carl's Jr. or a Jack in the Box, okay? They're slightly differentiated, okay? So that's what that means by heterogeneous products. All right, when we use the word competition, as in perfect comp and monopolistic comp, that means that there's no significant barriers to entry. Any firm can come or go. All you need to do is have enough money to start up your place, get a building to rent, get some land. In the case of farming, go out and buy a couple hundred acres, right? And you're good to go. Not much restrictions stopping you from going into this business if you wanted to, okay? We're gonna see with the oligops and the monops, that the oligopoly and the monopoly, that there are in fact significant barriers to entry. And I'll talk about what some of those are in just a minute. All right, because of the barriers to entry in the oligopoly and monopoly, they're able to hide information. Whereas in the competitive markets, perfect comp and monopolistic comp, we say that there's perfect information, that there's so many firms that it's hard to keep secrets, right? So there's a lot of information, ton of information on both sides. It's from the firm side and from the consumer side. All right, characteristics in terms of efficiency, our most efficient market structure is going to be the perfect comp. And as you move to the right along the continuum towards the monopoly, it's going to become less efficient. and monopoly is in fact the least efficient, okay? And we'll talk about what that means and how it's going to work as we go along with the discussion. All right, so examples I have down here. This is the handy part students always want to know. Well, give me an example of a firm so I can relate this. Agriculture, the wheat, apples, milk. When you buy milk, you have no idea whose cow that milk came out of, do you? Right? So that's a very homogeneous product, right? All right. Monop-comp, the interesting ones, like I mentioned, with a fast food, right? Where they're slightly similar. They're all hamburgers, but they're still different, and there's tons of them. All you gotta do is drive down the street, and you'll see these fast food restaurants everywhere, right? So there's a lot of buyers and sellers in the fast food industry, and they do have heterogeneous products. So they're monopolistic comp. Clothing as well. There's tons and tons of clothing makers and types of clothing and all that good stuff. Also, legal services, we have tons and tons of different lawyers. A divorce lawyer, a family lawyer, a criminal lawyer, right? Property lawyers, all kinds of stuff. Human rights lawyers that we're looking at now with what's going on in the world. So there's tons and tons of attorneys everywhere. And with the heterogeneous products, they all have different specialties, okay? And so those kinds of things, services like that are under monopolistic comp. Now, an oligopoly, we're continuing to the right here. An oligopoly is a few big firms. Again, as we move to the right, the firms are getting bigger. And again, when we move from perfect comp to monopolistic comp, McDonald's is not a small firm. Burger King is not a small firm. Subway is not a small firm, right? So we kind of jumped in terms of our firm size a little bit. Now, even bigger is our oligopolies, where there's a few dominant firms. And we measure a fewness. We don't quantify fewness that much. We like to just use that general word. Few could be 3, 4, 5. Few could be 15, okay? Relative to 2 million, 15 is still few, okay? So it's a relative comparison thing. We do have specific ways of how we measure oligopolies. Like I said, if you want to take that Econ 304, we have a couple of concentration ratios and Hirschman-Herfindahl indexes that we use, but we don't have the time to do those in this quarter, unfortunately. There's so much else we had to cover. All right. Anyways, examples of the oligopoly are pharmaceutical industries. The automakers, the big three in the United States, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, they're huge, they're dominant, right? OPEC is a few nations that are, OPEC stands for what? The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, right? And so those are big countries. The airlines, so maybe there's like 10 or 12 big domestic airlines, right? Okay, so that's what we mean by an oligopoly. On the other hand, all the way to the right is our monopolies. The good news is monopolies are least efficient, and so the government actually tries to prevent them because of those inherent inefficiencies. However, local monopolies are often permitted in terms of they're the only cable provider in town, they're the only utilities in town, something like that, where there's infrastructure and a lot of money that has to be spent to set up a business. And so like a Vista has a monopoly in Spokane. All right, so those are our market structures. The ones we're going to be comparing and contrasting are the two on the end, and then we're going to say that the majority of our firms exist somewhere in the middle. Monop-comp, very similar to perfect comp. Oligopoly, very similar to monopoly. Okay, so that's the background of what we're doing and why, I guess. So let me close out of the market structure and go to my perfect comp lecture notes. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this one. I'm going to go to a new one. I'm going to go to perfect comp lecture notes. All right, and so here now, this is my notes, things I want to talk about. I'm hitting the highlights from the chapter, basically, is what I'm doing. Okay, so again, hold on one second. The definition of a market structure is the framework within which the firms compete. It's that competitive environment. How competitive are these firms to each other? And how does that affect their pricing and output decisions? All right. So again, I went through the types of market structures, the perfect comp, the monop-comp, the oligopoly, and monopoly. So assumptions that we make about how the firms compete, we're going to look at the two extremes, the perfect comp and the monopoly. Perfect comp being the most efficient, monopoly being the most inefficient. And our goal then, if we know that monopolies are inefficient, How can we move to the left? We want to get all of our firms left. Improving competition improves efficiency, makes the goods and services more affordable for our citizens so more people can get them. This is a good thing in terms of social outcomes. So that's why we want this march towards perfect comp. All right, so perfect comp, just to recap from the market structures handout, many buyers and sellers, an identical product, perfect information, easy entry and exit. And again, wheat farming is a classic example. I showed you the data and so on. As we're going through this, right, I'm going to show you how to do this with respect to, I'm going to have the market picture on the left, which is all the firms, supply and demand. And then I'm going to have on the right an individual firm. And so think of this as just Farmer Bob. This is one firm. However, because there's so many firms and they're pretty much of similar size, 444 acres, right? Kind of that's the average, all right? So we like to think of our firms in perfectly competitive markets being of enough similar size that one picture represents all of them. And so this is the average Joe farmer, okay? Kind of idea. So when you're going through these models, think of that. On the left-hand side is the market model showing everybody. On the right-hand side is how is Farmer Bob being affected by the market? So the two pictures are definitely interrelated as we go through this. All right, what we need to understand before doing this is in perfectly competitive markets, the individual firm is so small, they cannot influence the market price. So think about it this way. The individual firm is so small that they could sell everything that they make at the market price, right? The market is huge. So when they come to market, their stuff gets gobbled up at the market price. Okay, so think about that for a second. If you're a firm, right, in the perfectly competitive market, that's good news. I know there's a market for every item I produce. All my cherries are going to get sold, okay? This is an important concept, okay? So I could never charge more than the market price. So let's say cherries are selling for, I don't know, $2 a pound or something, right? So they're selling for $2 and you decide that you're going to try and make some extra money and you decide to sell it for $3. There are so many other firms out there and the consumers can get to those other cherries that are $2. They're never going to pay your $3. Okay? Then you would never raise your price, right, when someone else could sell it for $2. So now you might have the thought, well, if I lower my price from $2 down to $1.50, wouldn't I sell more? Okay, that's a bad idea because I just told you that you could sell everything at $2. Why would you lower your price to $1.50? You wouldn't, would you? I hope that you guys all realize that lowering your price in a perfectly competitive environment is the dumbest thing ever, right? Okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to charge the market price, aren't you? You're stuck. You're stuck. You can't raise it because everybody else is charging the market price. You don't want to lower it. That's suicide. Why would you do that, right? That's stupid. You're going to take a loss, right? Why would I sell 100 cherries for $1.50 when I could sell 100 cherries for $2? Well, that's stupid. So don't even think about it. So in other words, you're going to charge the market price. That's the best you can do. So because of that, you are a price taker. You take the market price and that's what you use to price your items. Okay? All right. What that means is the implication is that the demand curve that is facing an individual firm is no longer downward sloping. It's a straight horizontal line at the market price. Okay, look at my picture here. I have this example right here. The PC firm earning positive profit. Notice the market model on the left. And the market model here says that when this market, oh, I didn't put my S&D on here, but you guys understand that that's S&D. You guys know how to do this. Minus a half point for me. Anyways, so the equilibrium price is P1, and this big Q is the market quantity. When I come over here on the right-hand side, because this is the individual firm, I'm going to use little q is the individual firm's quantity, okay? So big Q is actually N times little q, where N is the number of firms in the market, okay? Anyways, so I could sell everything at P1. So my demand curve is a horizontal line, little d, and that becomes my marginal revenue because the next unit I'm going to sell, the next pound of cherries is $2. The next pound after that is $2. The next pound after that is $2 and $2 and $2 and $2. So the demand curve and the marginal revenue curve are the same. And that's why I have little d equals MR. And again, it's little d because over here, big D is market demand. Little d is individual firms demand, okay? All right, so once I put that little d equals marginal revenue on there, now as a firm, I have to choose my level of production. So I always, so here, MR curve is the same as the horizontal demand curve. Put the MR curve on a regular set of cost curves. The big ones that matter in terms of the cost curves are the marginal cost and the ATC. You're going to see that the AVC also matters as well. I'm going to show you that in the next part when I talk about shutdown. All right, and so where you want to choose, what you want to do as a firm is choose Q, choose little q, where MC equals MR. And so do I have room? I was going to add that. The decision rule. I can type. Oof. Decision rule is always choose little q where MR equals MC. So where do the MR and the MC curves cross? Trying to make sure this fits on the same page. And there we go. Okay, so that's what you want to see. So where does that horizontal line cross the MC? And why did I do it there? Well, that is weird. I don't know what I was thinking here because I clearly did this wrong. So hold on 1 second. I'm going to pause and I am going to fix this. So give me a second while I fix this. All right, sorry about that. There was a little glitch and somehow I copied over a wrong example in there. So do not go by that. I will upload a new lecture notes, obviously, so that I have a better picture. I'm going to do my screen share. Let's go back. I have now fixed it. Took me 2 minutes to fix it. All right, so here we go. So this picture is now correct. So I come across the red MR until I hit the MC. Notice this green dot right here, the top green dot, where MR crosses MC. That's going to choose my Q, so I come straight down. I come from the MR-MC intersection straight down to Q. All right, now I know what level of quantity I'm going to produce. I also know the price. P times Q, I can calculate my total revenues, right? Let's see how much it cost me, though, to make the Q1 level of output as a firm. So I go back up after I've come all the way down from the MRMC, whoosh, then I go back up until I hit the ATC. So come straight up to ATC and then straight across to the left to the vertical axis, and that's my ATC. So it cost me less than the price. This area in between, which I've hashed in yellow here, that is my area of profit. You can see that profit is equal to price minus ATC times Q. So just let's put some numbers on this. Let's say my price was $2 and my average total cost per unit was $1.75 for those cherries. So basically my profit margin is 25 cents on the cherry for each pound. And if I made 100 pounds, 100 times 0.25, this would be $25 worth of profit. Okay, so that's how you would calculate profit. So this is what it looks like with both a market model and an individual firm's cost curve models when a perfectly competitive firm is making positive economic profit. Well, let's look and say, okay, Well, how would it change if a perfectly competitive firm is making losses? Because keep in mind, a perfectly competitive firm in the short run, only in the short run, can make positive economic profit, can be making zero economic profit, breaking even, can be losing money, making negative economic profits, or a perfectly competitive firm might even choose to shut down, right? This happens in the shutdown. People think that's a hypothetical example. Our golf courses, they choose to shut down in November because nobody wants to play golf when the snow's coming around, right? At some point between October and November, they have to make a decision that keeping the golf course open incurs greater costs than the number of people that are coming out to play golf. When it starts to get cold, when there's leaves all over the golf course and grass is dry or dying and all that good stuff. So these golf courses, they make a cost benefit decision to in fact shut down in the short run. It doesn't mean they're gone forever. They're going to come back in May or April, right? March in some cases, right? So shutting down is not a permanent thing. It's a short run decision to shut down. It could be a long run thing if you don't think the demand for your product is ever going to come back. All right, but I don't want you to associate shutdown with going out of business forever. Okay, it's a short run decision. All right, so let's go. The second option, these guys can be losing money. So what would that look like? Again, market model, they're going to be price takers. So whatever the equilibrium price ends up being, you guys have done your supply and demand analysis. You know how these market models work, right? So at P1, I'm going to come over on the individual firm's cost curves, and I'm going to draw that horizontal line, which represents both the individual demand curve and the marginal revenue curve. So my decision rule, find where MR equals MC. I found that. It's this lower green dot now. I come straight down to little q. That's my quantity. Then to find out how much did it cost me to make little q on a per unit basis, average total cost. So I go up to the ATC straight up and then straight across. And in this case, my per unit costs are above the price that I can sell these items at. And that does not mean by itself I'm going to shut down. That just means I'm going to ride it out and hopefully demand will increase and that price will go up, right? So don't think that just because a firm is losing money that they themselves are going to shut down. Some firms you're going to see in the long run story will choose to shut down because they have other opportunities that they would rather pursue. And then that's good for the remaining firms because there's less competition. All right, we'll talk about that long run adjustment process in just a little bit. But you can see here now, let's say that the price is $2 for my cherries, and now my average total costs are $2.50. Okay, so I'm losing 50 cents on the pound, right? Over 100 pounds of cherries, that's $50, right? And this is this area that I've hashed in blue. Rectangle represents my total losses. So that's what it would look like if a firm is losing money. So what would the middle ground be? Not earning positive profits, not earning negative profits, but breaking even. In this case, what would have to happen is that little individual demand curve and MR curve would come across and would bump the bottom. It's a tangency where a curve bumps a straight line, right? There would be a tangency right there where that demand curve bumps the bottom of the ATC, so that once I find MCMR, green dot, straight down, find my Q, I go back up to ATC and I find out it's the same point. Okay, so price and ATC are at the same point. Well, that's going to be, I'm making $2 a unit on my cherries, and it's costing me $2 a unit, I'm breaking even. There's zero economic profit there. All right, so to show you some of this, and notice we'll get to shut down here, look ahead, right? What I have here is how to calculate the amount of profit, because that's what we want to do. We want to know how much profit are these guys earning. And so there's my formula, price minus ATC times little q. And here is just the firm's cost curve. And so you can see little d comes across, hits the MC, straight down to Q, back up to ATC. So you can see this area that is hashtagged in yellow. This case is losses because the ATC is above the price. Whenever the ATC is above the price, that's going to be losses. It's going to be negative. So let's add some actual numbers on here. Let this be $10 for the price, and that ATC is going to be 12. And again, to make the math simple, let's just do a quantity of 100. So then to calculate this, and this can be a short answer problem, a multiple choice question or something on your homework, right? But to calculate the profit, it's equal to price minus ATC times Q. Well, price is 10 minus ATC is 12 times my quantity of 100, there's a loss of negative $200. So this is an example of how you can calculate, quantify how much profit, how much loss are we talking about here. All right, so the last option for our perfectly competitive firms in the short run, is that they could choose to shut down. And like I said with the golf example, it could be just for a short period of time, or like maybe Blockbuster Video, they're gone, they're never coming back. Okay, so shut down, we don't know until some time has expired whether that firm is ever going to come back or not. So the firm is never going to produce if that D equals MR line crosses below the ABC. So look in this picture here. Even though we're making losses, my price is still above the AVC, okay? If this red line had crossed so low that it had fallen down here below the AVC, this firm should shut down. They're not even covering their variable costs. How are they ever going to chip away at their fixed costs? So the minimum on the AVC is my shutdown point. If the price falls below AVC, minimum AVC, the firm will shut down. And that's what you need to know. So look here, what does that look like? Look, this red demand equals MR line comes through below the AVC. This firm, the price is then less than AVC, we're going to shut down. So that's how we deal with shutdown. So just to recap, in the short run, a given hypothetical perfectly competitive firm could be earning 1, positive profits, 2, negative profits, also called losses, 3, could be breaking even, or 4, could be making the decision to shut down if the price is less than average variable cost. All right, that's the short run. Let's look at the long run. What you need to know about long run perfectly competitive firms is that in the long run, all perfectly competitive firms, all industries, regardless, whatever, will make 0 economic profits. Because of this adjustment process, there's a long run adjustment process, right? And because of the ease with which firms can enter and exit, all right, it'll be the case that in the long run, the only possible outcome, only one possible outcome for perfectly competitive firms in the long run, hopefully I said that enough that you wrote it down, is that there'll be 0 economic profit. Okay, so how does this work? How do we go from a position of, in this case, in this picture here, making profit, to having those profits be whittled away down to 0 economic profit? We're not going to make losses. We're just going to go from positive profit down to break even, okay? In this case, look at, we have the market model on the left, and assume that we're starting out with the black intersection, the intersection of S1 and D1, P1 and Q1, okay? Then that corresponds to the green P1, and we're going to show that horizontal little individual firms demand curve and MR curve here coming across, right? And again, what in the world was I thinking? And again, I'm going to pause because there's an error in my drawing. So I'm going to pause this for 1 second while I fix this. So I'm going to pause you guys.